Hello there, I'm Blackbright. I broadcast out of the UK into your homes, of course, and welcome to my channel. If it's the first time you're passing through, of course, click the thumbs up, the thumbs down, or subscribe and share. Today I wanted to give you I'm going to talk about three different topics. The first one is about the Alert app that Boris Johnson is going to talk about this afternoon. It's about how people who have left the UK and have gone back to Jamaica are being treated like lepers, and whether or not the NHS is secretly being privatised. So those are my three main topics. And let's start off with this new COVID-19 alert system. They're not calling it the COVID-19 app, it's an alert system. And it's now here. Boris will be talking about it this afternoon, I understand. So he'll be presenting the COVID app this afternoon, which is much sooner than I thought. The UK is obviously not wasting much time. I mean, they can see all the fora happening in America, and I believe they just don't want us to be able to be in a position to oppose it or oppose anything that's going on. So they're getting things out there as quick as possible. They have a job to be done, and like I always say, the Brits are very, very strategic, slow but sure. So with America, they blab it all out and they give people a chance to contest and make a big fuss, and whatever may happen or what may not happen is usually because the information has been leaked out. In the UK, it is totally different. They only leak out what they want to leak out, and the rest just hits you like a bomb. A bomb, that's what I meant, not a bum, a bomb. That's what happens. 1 minute you think, oh yeah, everything is under control and you've got it all sussed. The next minute, they just hit you with it. And that is what this process is going to be like. You are not going to know what's hit you from one day to the next. Very, very subtle, very strategic. So, the NHS to save lives has been taken out of the mantra. They were saying before, save the NHS, save lives. They're not saying NHS save lives anymore, probably because the NHS is secretly being privatised or slowly being privatised under the guise that they can't cope. And I think if you can't cope, you're going to outsource to private companies, and then by the time you turn around, the NHS is a privatised entity. So the new slogan is stay alert, control the virus and save lives. So that's the new alert he'll come out with this evening. The new COVID-19 alert system is a track and trace system. Lockdown has been extended to the 28th of May, to the end of the month. 5 tests need to be accomplished before we are eased from lockdown, according to Downing Street. The first one is making sure that NHS can cope. Like I said, that's an interesting one because, it's very difficult to say what you want to say sometimes. But anyway, that's why they're outsourcing and bringing other companies in. Okay, sustained and consistent fall in the death rate. Well, with all those people, I saw a great big crowd on a video. They have big these people know easy enough. Big sound boxes and goodness knows what street party. I don't know which part of the UK it was, but it was filmed. Next minute, the police are in there and all sorts. I didn't watch it to the end because it was too long. So if everybody's getting together, no social distancing. You wouldn't even mind if people wanted to do that, but they were practicing social distancing, but they're not. I think people have got to the point where they just think, oh, listen, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. It's just not worth it. That's how some people are feeling. They're feeling, if I'm going to catch it, I'm going to catch it. And so they're defying the lockdown, but they make it worse for everybody else. That is the problem. It's kind of a selfish mood. Yes, I understand. That's how we all feel. But when push comes to shove, when their behaviour increases the penalties that they're imposing, it's not nice. But I understand. I do understand. I don't agree, but I do understand. The infection. Another one of the 5 tests is that the infection rate decreases to manageable levels. Now, manageable levels. That's once again subjective. What is manageable, and by whom? Supply of tests and PPE meets future demand. Now, that's practically impossible, because if they are depending on if they're saying that there's going to be a second pandemic and they haven't even got enough PPE equipment now and enough tests, how are they going to have it in the future? So these 5 tests are doomed to fail. And they're probably deliberately doomed to fail so that they can keep people imprisoned, in quotes. Because these aren't realistic tests. These tests are, like I said, doomed to fail. You can't pass them. It's like giving kids, who can't read and write, an algebra sum. And then it says adjustments don't risk a second peak. So what they're saying there is that, with all these slow easing out of the lockdown, it doesn't cause the pandemic to resurface. So those are the 5 tests that need to be passed in order to release ourselves from lockdown. So they've come up with the R number, which I think is just a complicated way of, I don't know, these people, whatever they are, I don't even know what you call them. I can't call them academics, you can't call them educated, you can't call them intelligent. But they come up with these, the R number. The R number, which is meant to be a technical term for how fast the virus is spreading in the UK. For example, if the R number is 1, that means one person with the virus passes it on to the other. Why can't they just bloody say that? Why do they have to try and make it complicated? Something so simple. I'm not sure if a public inquiry can be made under the emergency powers. Yeah, apparently we've got... there's a group of 70 public officials. Where did I write that then? I don't know where I wrote that down. Probably missed it. Right, so much, I missed half of it. There's a group of public officials that are demanding a public inquiry into the number of deaths of black people with the coronavirus. I'm not quite sure under the emergency powers whether they're allowed to do that, but it'd be interesting to see what the outcome is. Ex-England footballer Sol Campbell has suggested that the coronavirus is manipulated or man-made and designed to kill black people. I would tend to disagree with that because it's not that clever. I don't believe the virus is that clever. And once again, I have to go back to places like Africa and places like the Caribbean where the death toll is so low. So it's not designed to kill black people, the virus. What I believe, or my opinion is that the remedy or the treatment, in quote, is probably what is going to work against black people. Because that is controlled. I mean, if we were to follow this, whether it's a conspiracy theory or not, but if we were to follow that and say, okay, this is a depopulation exercise. The depopulation exercise is not just blacks. It's for any of the undesirable, the unemployed, the that anybody who they consider is not contributing to society, they are considered the undesirables. So if like they say, the virus is a depopulation strategy, that would mean the only way it can work is if it's controlled. They can actually control who they get rid of. The only way they can control who they get rid of is by doing something deliberately or something within their control. Releasing a virus into the air is not controlled unless it's got an algorithm in it or something in it that directly targets black people. And that is not what it is doing. What is happening is we're seeing black people removed from one place. Don't know if they're relatively healthy or not, but they're being removed from one place to another place and then dying. They're not dying on the streets. They're not dropping dead on the streets, are they? They're dying in a facility. So therefore, you'd have to ask yourself, is it really targeting black people? So I can't agree with Sol Campbell on that, because it would have to be, because the coronavirus is global, it would mean that all over the world globally, black people would be dying disproportionately. But where are black people dying disproportionately? In America and the UK. And the UK, of course, is the first one to jump on the bandwagon with this track and trace thing. So that's what you have to kind of ask yourself. What makes sense? Does it make sense when you say, oh, you know, the virus is out there to kill all black people? It doesn't make sense, and that will be debunked. So, just my opinion. So, like I said, I don't even know why. I don't even understand why the UK, if it was something, just supposing it was something about killing black people, why would they want to kill black people and they're only 4% of the population? I mean, white people are 87% in England. Or do they want it just to be white? I could understand if like black people were like 40% or 50% or 60% of the population, of the UK population, but 4%. And I don't know about, I think Asians are like 5 to 6%. But white people are 87.6% in the UK. So that doesn't make sense to me. Why the little dege 4% would be a problem. Or if you put the dege 4% and add it to the 6% of Asians, and that's 10%, that is quite a significant number. But the fact of the matter is, it's still a minority and it should not be a threat. That is if the argument is about depopulation. And then depopulation, like I said, depopulation, when they're thinking about depopulating, it's not just about blacks. It's about reducing the drain on society. That's what it's about. All the people who drain society, whether it's because they're on the dole or because they're not working or because whatever they're doing, maybe they're disabled, but whatever they're doing, a certain sector of people see them as a drain on resources. Even the elderly, yeah, you can throw them in there as well. They see them as a drain on resources. Why are the elderly a drain on resources, even though they are the most affluent out of the whole lot? Because they are using up the pension pot. So you'd have to ask yourself, well, if they did want to depopulate and, get back as much money as possible, you'd have to think, where would they be going? They'd be going to DWP, the Department of Work and Pensions, and they'd be thinking about who takes the most money out of the country, who are draining resources. And then they would come up with the idea, well, okay, disabled, people in care homes, and all sorts. And that is how we need to depopulate. We don't want those people in the country because they're not contributing. So if that was the case, it would have to be a selective process, wouldn't it? It'd have to be those people who they can actually target, so to speak, and say, okay, these are the people we're going to target. But there again, who knows how this thing is working? We can only speculate. And I don't really like speculating, but I try to work with what we've got and I try to make sense of it. And majority of time, I can't make sense of it. The majority of time. So the programming has begun. This reminder, blacks are dying disproportionately. You repeat it enough, it becomes a fact. Whether or not it's a fact or not, doesn't really matter. The fact that you're repeating it. Then you'll find, oh, black people don't want to go near, white people don't want to go near black people because they might have the coronavirus. And then you'll find them distancing themselves. All a part of the programming. And the sad thing is that people are so susceptible. They don't have critical minds. They don't seem to have, the majority of people do not seem to have a critical mind. They don't seem to be able to think for themselves. It's almost like they just take it in like a sponge. And sometimes I even talk to people I know, and it's like they're on another planet. And I'm just like, it's not like things I'm making up. If I say something, I normally, whether it's something that they've said on the news or something that somebody's actually said, I normally look at that and I question it. But some people, they just, I don't know. People need to think more critically. People need to ask questions. People need to examine and investigate what's going on. Instead of sitting around thinking, oh, you know, yeah, it's really, really good. We're doing this because of A, B, C, D, and E. So the system will rank, this COVID alert app will rank threat levels from the coronavirus from a scale of 1 to 5. Now, I did mention in a previous video about whether or not the COVID app was going to be our immunity passport. And it is very similar to the Chinese one in that it's got the red, yellow and green. But it's also got a scale of 1 to 5, this one, according to the data televised, according to what the data it receives. But like I said, you'll probably get more out of it when Boris Johnson does his address this afternoon. I don't know if it's 7 o'clock this evening. Today is Sunday, the 10th of May. So I don't know if, I'm not quite sure what time his address is, but you need to check that out and see what he's saying about this alert system. So yeah, the system with alerts, the same as China, will range from green, which will be level 1, to red, which will be level 5. Oh, so it's got 5 levels, even though it's got 3 colours. It's actually got levels within those colours. And will be similar to the one used to keep the public informed about the terror threat level. I didn't even know there was one that kept us informed about the terror threat level. Live and learn, don't you? So COVID-19 alert system will be administered by the Joint Biosecurity Centre. It will also reflect the virus threat in different parts of the country, which could inform local alterations and restrictions in England. Now, remember Donald Trump, he was talking about there's certain parts of the states which he didn't say they're rich, but he says they've got more space. That they're less likely to bump into each other, and it's kind of a self-imposed, not self-imposed, but by virtue of the layout, they social distance. I.e., the rich, they have a lot of land, their houses are much farther apart, and so he was saying that in those areas the lockdown will be lifted, and this is a similar strategy, because it's saying it will also reflect the virus threat in different parts of the country, which could inform local alteration of restrictions in England. So in the more affluent parts of England, they won't be subjected to the lockdown as it would like in places like London, where it's very dense. So, as usual, they always make it look like it's going to benefit. That is the technique. That is the strategy. Oh, it's going to benefit you. It's going to save your life. It's going to save other people. A bit like China taking over Africa and Jamaica. They've made it look as though what they're offering is going to benefit, when there's an ulterior motive, of course. And there's always an ulterior motive. We're dealing with business people. We're not dealing with people who have empathy, who have a soul and a heart. We have people who put profits above people. That's what we have. That's what our society is built on. People who are money motivated, who are very greedy, and who do not see, they've almost become immune to humanity, the humane part of themselves. And it's all about, what can I get out of this? If I put this in, what do we get out? And if anything they're putting in, they're not getting anything out of it. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. Let me see. The meeting of the government, the Cobra Emergency Committee involving the Cabinet, devolved nations and the Mayor of London is probably being held as I'm doing this now. I know it's sometime this morning or this afternoon, and they are going to be discussing whatever this COVID alert app is going to do before he does his address this afternoon. So it's high security discussions are taking place now. And as they keep saying, emphasis on extreme caution when lifting lockdown measures. They've got no intention of lifting lockdown measures. Easing it to make you feel a bit more comfortable, but they ain't lifting it. And then I read somewhere about people over 60 won't be able to travel at least till the end of the year. Who knows? They might not be able to travel at all. We don't know. We know that there are going to be some changes, significant changes. And we don't know if these changes are going to be permanent or whether they're temporary. All we know is that we just need to adapt and adjust and make sure it doesn't affect our mindset. That's the most important thing, because once your mind is challenged and you become depressed or upset or anxious or worried, that's going to be an issue. So you just have to face this head on. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. So we can't worry about what we don't know about. All we can do is try to think about the possible scenarios, because that's what I try to do. I try to think about the possible scenarios, the possible outcomes, and I try to navigate around that to see if I can kind of make sense out of what could ultimately happen. If A happens, if B is in place, or if C is in place. And then I share my thoughts. But to be honest, we don't know what is actually going on. Well, we've got a good idea, but we don't know. We really don't know. So anyway, let's talk about another thing. Again, about the coronavirus. But we had, I think, I don't know how many people went left the UK to go to Jamaica. That's where they're meant to be staying, or I don't know if they were on a holiday or whether that's where they live, and that they visited the UK and now they're going back to Jamaica. Well, they're being treated like lepers, apparently. You know, that's a problem. You see, when you get taken in, it's a difficult one, because on the one hand, you can be taken in by the media so much that you forget your humanity, you forget your empathy, you're just totally like a robot. And you forget you're dealing with individuals and you're just thinking about, oh, we can't spread the coronavirus, we can't spread the coronavirus. And so people are actually afraid to get near to people. And in this particular case, they wouldn't even allow them to use the toilet. They'd been on the plane for over 9 hours. And all they'd had on the plane, it was not like a regulatory flight where you get your meals. That's what I understand. They were just given a sandwich through the whole flight. So by the time they reached Jamaica, they were starving. And they had to beg for food. And they had to beg to use the toilets. And I think, yes, they have to be quarantined for 14 days and they're putting them in a hotel. But that process of quarantine is so humiliating. And like I said, you're made to feel like you're a leper. And that's not right. That's not right. And I can imagine, you know, you getting off the plane, you've got all these people like we've seen all over the place with all that gear on, looking like people coming out of space. And they've got those machines to test whether or not you've got a temperature and whether or not you have or not. You know, you're separated, you can't touch people, keeping their distance, and it must be absolutely awful. Absolutely awful to travel at this time. And regardless of where you go, this is just Jamaica. The quarantine is in place for anywhere you go. But it's worse when you're leaving the UK because of the high death toll. I think we're fourth in line. I'm not quite sure. It keeps changing. But yeah, fourth highest, I think. But the fact of the matter is, because of that, people are going to be sceptical. Anybody leaving the UK to go anywhere. But at the same token, it's hard that, you know, there should be a way to treat people still as individuals, still give them a bit of dignity, as opposed to treating people as though they're criminals. And that's what one of the passengers said. They said, I feel like a criminal. I haven't done a crime. Just left one country to come to another. And it's almost like, you know, ooh, they've got the lurgy. So, and those crew members that left England to go to Jamaica, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, after making that long trip over, I don't know how many days, I think it was 14 days, got to Jamaica. Whoever was the border force there wouldn't let them in, even though they were meant to get off and board. Nobody had told the border guards or the coast guards that they were allowed in. So they had to go all the way back to England. And now come back all the way back to England. And then just last week, they were able to get a flight back to Jamaica, only to be undergo this kind of treatment and reception. It's not easy. Personally, I don't think I'd want to travel. Not now. It was bad enough when things were normal, lugging stuff here and long lines and stuff, let alone now. So, yeah, and the last topic I want to talk about was the NHS. The UK government has been outsourcing to the private sector under the guise that they need to have more help in order to deal with the coronavirus. Even before the crisis, the government were helping private companies creeping into the NHS, I understand, but it's more or less become distracted by the coronavirus. A private company is coordinating 3 new test centres And at the same time, the government is saying protect the NHS. Well, that's why I think maybe protect the NHS is out of the mantra now, because I don't think you can protect it. And also many people have lost their lives in the name of NHS. It's a bit of a shame, isn't it? But remember, over a year ago, Donald Trump tripped up and said, yes, NHS is on the table. Boris is saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. Everybody says, no, it's not. No, it's not. We would never get rid of the NHS. They might keep a little segment of it, but the majority is likely to be privately owned. So, social care is on the verge of complete privatisation. GP surgeries are becoming virtual, or they are virtual now in order to deal with the pandemic. So, we do not know where we're gonna go, what we're gonna do. Yeah. So, happy days. Might as well make the most of the days that you have. Actually, I've heard that there's this UK Freedom organisation. Apparently they're organising something at Hyde Park next Saturday. What can I say? What can I say? On the one hand, you know, you need to speak up. On another hand, do you speak up in a responsible way? I mean, are they kind of planning to go to the park and, you know, have something in place so people are socially distanced so that nobody can say that they're breaking the law, or are they all just going to gather and speak up? I mean, what they're saying is that they want their lives back. So we'll have to watch this space, folks. Personally, I'm not going, but we'll have to see what happens. That's all for now. Bye-bye.